Hello everyone, and welcome in. This is I won't say a controversial topic, but this is definitely an important topic, a hot topic, a topic that needs to be talked about. Human trafficking. And in that relation, human trafficking versus prostitution. We're going to get into all of that. So, again, my name is Deborah J. I am the founder of Hairbed's Thoughts, and I talk about all things going on with relationships and things of that nature, toxic relationships, all the things, right? But this is also an important topic, and January is also Human Trafficking Awareness Month, right? Unfortunately, there needed to be an awareness month because human trafficking is something that happens quite often in the times that we're living in right now. And this conversation was sparked by, or this video was sparked by something that a conversation I had with my mother this morning. She had saw on the news where there was a case here in our local area about human trafficking. Some women and men were both involved, and I was like, that is human trafficking. She was basically saying that people be prostituting, and that prostitution is a choice in or prostitution and human trafficking the same thing. In a sense, yes, it is. But what I want to talk about with you guys is when a lot of people say, well, okay, they're just prostituting, they're just selling their body for money, for drugs or whatever, things of that nature. Some people do it for food, to survive, because in their mind, they don't know any other way. But human trafficking is more so when someone is being forced into sexual acts, or sexual slavery, as you will call it. And that's why they came up with the new Human Trafficking Prevention Month, because we have to get the information out there to people to, help them to recognize the signs. Because for women, and I can say for myself, and single women, young girls, particularly, the men and women, I will say, because there are men and women that are a part of these human trafficking rings that will be there to entice the woman or the young girl, to probably use the woman to make them feel more comfortable, saying, okay, we're just riding around doing this, nothing's gonna happen, you don't have to do anything, whatever they say to get them, to get them to come with them. So, but human trafficking and prostitution are two different things. And if you don't agree, that's your opinion. We're all entitled to our own opinions, right? But human trafficking is so prevalent now to where I guess people think of it as the same because in a sense it involves, sexual acts with strangers or sexual acts for money or drugs or whatever. But it's not. Human trafficking is you're forced into it. And not just because you're hungry, you're forced into it, physically, mentally, So I just want to go over a few of the signs with human trafficking and how you can, protect yourself so that you won't get in a situation. And I'm not blaming the victims at all, because once you're in that situation, you're in that situation. But just some things to think about, if you find yourself in a situation or near somebody, just be cautious. Just be cautious, especially online. Don't be in any private accounts or anything like that, and sometimes you have to make your account private, like your Facebook and your TikTok and all those things, because there are predators out there. Check your jobs. I've heard of a lot of people on, I believe it was Indeed, where they were being trafficked. They were, going to what they thought was a job interview. And no, it was not a job interview. So they were being, of course, a lot of this has been reported online. So, but just pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to who you trust. If there's anything suspicious, trust your gut and, don't be involved. Get away. Pay attention to the red flags. Because you have men, particularly that will groom you. They will find a woman or a young girl, and they will watch her and they will study her and get to know everything. Pay attention to those red flags. They could be sudden gifts, isolation, keeping you all to themselves so that they can basically brainwash you and entice you. Pay attention to those signs. Don't be, they tell you, oh, just keep everything private. This between me and you. No, talk to your friends, talk to your family, someone that you can trust that, if you see something that doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, talk about it with somebody so that you can get help or to prevent you from getting caught up in a situation like that, right? But I just want to go over some more signs, and these are the 5 P's of trafficking. 5 P's of trafficking. Prevention, protection, provision, prosecution, and participation. Now, these 5 basic elements of the model for anti-trafficking basically was put into place by Tulane.education. They did a journal article on this, rather. But they said that they're saying that countries should adopt this comprehensive 5 P's approach to combating trafficking in persons, including prevention, again, protection, provision, prosecution, and participation, right? So we have to be careful, again, like I said, just pay attention to the warning signs. And just back to what I was saying about sex trafficking or trafficking versus prostitution and the difference. There's an article that I read with the law, it's in a law group, the SBW law group, and they're saying that while prostitution and sex trafficking both fall under the broad category of sex crimes, they refer to vastly different things under the law, which is what I just said, right? Just basically prostitution may, in fact, be a part of trafficking in some cases, but it's not always, right? But then trafficking often involves some sort of force or coercion and is generally not voluntary. So those are the differences between prostitution and sex trafficking, and that's under the law. That is under the law. So, again, with prostitution, you have, where someone is engaged in prostitution, it involves the exchange of money for sexual activity. And in some cases, it's a person engaging in prostitution. Some of them are doing it on their own free will, but others may be forced. And that's where we get a little deeper into sex trafficking, or human trafficking, rather. It occurs when a person knowingly takes or causes someone to go to a place for prostitution, engage in prostitution, or otherwise perform a sexually explicit act. And acts of sex trafficking often involve the use of force, threat, and coercion. They can affect individuals of all ages, but most frequently involve women and children. And before we leave here, I will share a little bit of a backstory about my situation. I was dating a young man a couple of years ago now, and that was a part of his past, actually. But he was like, oh, no. Well, in the beginning, he told me, oh, no, we were all, it was him, and he claimed it was him and 2 other women, one his age, I guess, and then one that was younger. And that the girl, she knew that what she was doing and everything, and that, so he felt he wasn't doing anything, just called himself a pimp or whatever. But that was it. At the end of that, he had charges for it and everything, And so later on, as the relationship grew, he told me the truth. He was like, yeah, this is wrote a whole book about. Yeah. And it stated basically this is the life that he was living as a pimp. He had a whole bunch of women, and basically he was trafficking them, and it just blew my mind. But I could see by his mannerisms after the fact, as I got to know him more, before I got out of that relationship, that he is one of those people that knows how to groom people and coerce you and talk you into it, sly, they used to call them like womanizers or whatever. That's his persona, that's how he portrays himself. That's how he gets by, off of women. And, thankfully, it never got to that part, with us. It never got that far. But he had mentioned it. He had started talking about it, and things of that nature. And so I knew I had to get out of that relationship, right? Because I'm pretty sure that would have been his next step, is to definitely, get me into that ring of lifestyle some kind of way. So, just ladies and men, because, men and women can be trafficked. Pay attention to the signs, be careful. Don't shy away from talking to people. Just make sure that you are aware. And that's why it's important to talk about these things, so that so that you can be aware of these things. And if you need help, to call the police, call a trusted friend, a church member, somebody that you can talk to. If you feel like you're headed down that road or already in that, on that road, reach out for help. There's help out there. There's lots of ways you can figure out a way. So online, just walk into a store and say, hey, call 911, something, do something. I know your life is, in danger, but try your best to, get help, seek help. I've read so many stories where, women found a way out, whether they found some kind of loophole or some kind of escape, and they broke free. They got away and got to help. So just wanted to share that. And being that, again, this is January, which is, like I said, this is National Sex Trafficking Awareness. So I want to just share that with you guys and get the word out, and just let you know that you're not alone, that there is help out there, that you don't have to be forced into sex trafficking, prostitution, or the likes, but that there is a difference between the two. That was the main reason for this conversation, that there is a difference between sex trafficking and prostitution. And I will share some information down at the end of this video, of course, in the description, for you to be able to reach out to someone for help. And let me know in the comments, how do you feel? Is sex trafficking and prostitution the same thing to you, or do you know the difference? Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation, all right? Here we have the conversations that heal. Talk to you soon. Bye.